Having been created in a lab, you would think this would be easy for me.
What's that?
Taking the ACT Science Reasoning Test.
I heard it can be hard, but there are ways to get through it more easily.
I heard that the ACT Science Test is really a reading test. They give you all the information you need to know.
That's right. You don't need to memorize a lot of science facts, but you do need to be able to read scientific passages, data charts, graphs, and information on experiments. You need to be able to think about what goes into a good science experiment.
Since we are science experiments, that should make it easier. Each group of information is called a passage, and the passages fall into 3 categories.
That's what I understand. The 3 categories are passages about charts and graphs, passages about experiments, and passages about conflicting viewpoints in science.
But the passages can be in any order. I heard one kind of passage is about charts and graphs. It is essentially about reading charts, tables, illustrations and other data in order to interpret the information.
There will be 3 groups of these types of questions. Each group or passage will have 5 questions. For most people, these passages will be the easiest to do because all the information you need is in front of you.
But sometimes they ask other questions that are not so obvious. Like you might have to predict what would happen next if the data continues in the same way.
The next type of passage is the experiment passage. Each of these sections has 6 questions. There will be a total of 3 of these types of passages.
These passages ask the student to understand and explain what happened in an experiment, or what might happen if the experiment changes. I heard the most challenging type of passage is the conflicting viewpoint or fighting scientist part.
You are probably right. There will only be one of these types of passages and it will have 7 questions. It might include a couple of different readings and then ask you about the underlying conflict.
I think I will save that question until last because it sounds like it will take some extra time.
That is a good idea. Since you can do the ACT questions in any order, it makes sense to save the more time-consuming questions for the end.
Time could get really tight. There are 40 questions and only 35 minutes.
Fortunately, each question counts the same number of points. It is best to get the ones that seem easy to you done first. Then you can spend the rest of your time on harder questions or questions that require more thought and reading.
And remember, what's easy for me might not be easy for you. Each of us should choose what seems easiest to us.
The best way to do that is to scan the passages. Quickly look over the information and the questions to figure out the type of passage and to decide where to start.
Since there isn't much time, I think it would be a good idea to make little notes in the margins, especially in the experiment and fighting scientist sections. If I underline words and make little notes, I won't have to reread the entire experiment or article again while I am answering the questions.
That's a good idea. Another way to save time is to estimate numbers. If there is an answer close to the estimate, then I will choose that one. That way I don't have to do all the math.
Considering that calculators are not allowed on this test, that is a good idea. Let's see if we have covered everything. There are 3 types of passages. There will be 3 passages about charts and graphs. Each of these passages will have 5 questions each.
There will be 3 passages about experiments. Each of these passages will have 6 questions each.
And there is 1 passage about fighting scientists or conflicting viewpoints, with 7 questions.
Since we can do the questions in any order, we can skip around and do the questions that seem easiest first.
Taking notes and estimating answers is a way to save time.
It's important to keep moving. If there's time at the end, you can always go back and reconsider an answer.
I really hope these tips help me get a good score.
Why is that?
The scientist who made me said if I score high enough, I get to leave this sewer.
Wow. Can I come too? I have been craving ice cream since I came out of the test tube.
Me too. I want Rocky Road.